customers love. We're just waiting for a couple more participants to join the session. So please do stay signed in and we will start shortly. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to today's webinar on building brands that customers love. This is the second webinar of the Industry Engagement webinar series organized by the Slascom Marketing Forum. My name is Kushlani De Silva, and I am a marketing consultant and strategist, and I work with technology companies on their marketing journeys. And I'm very pleased to be the moderator for today's session. So when you think of a brand, there are so many aspects to it, everything from the colors in your logo to aesthetics to look and feel, the kind of values that your brand stands for. And there are so many different interpretations of what makes a good brand. How do you take your brand into different markets? And basically, how do you measure the success of your brand? How do you know when your brand is actually reaching your target audience? And that's what today's session is all about. And the panelists for today's session are definitely, no doubt, brands themselves. And it's my pleasure to have Lakmini Vijay Sundara and Shalin Balasurya, who will talk to us today about their journeys in taking their brands global. So let me move on to the introductions. I'm sure they're both the companies that they represent, as well as Shalin and Lakmini really need no introduction, but let me start with that part anyway. So Lakmini is co-founder and CEO of Iron One Technologies and Boardpack, and she's a Sri Lankan technology entrepreneur who focuses on making Sri Lankan technology products that really go into global markets. And that's why she's a fitting choice for today's session. And if you take BoardPack as a company, one of its most recent achievements was winning the Best Brand Exporter Award at the National Chamber of Exporter Awards. And this was their second consecutive win for them. So congratulations to Lakmini and the team at BoardPack for their win. And Lakmili also has so many accolades to her name, everything from winning Ernst & Young's Winning Woman and the overall winner of the SARC Woman Entrepreneur of the Year for 2019 as well. So Lakmini, thank you very much for joining us in today's webinar. We're very excited to hear about your experiences in taking BoardPack into the global arena. And of course, Shalin Balasurya, who is the co-founder of Spa Salon, Ayurveda and Wellness. Spa Salon, I'm sure, is no doubt a part of all of our lives, myself included, obviously. And if you look at Spa Salon, they started off in 2009, and since then it is being recognized as the brand that repositioned Ayurveda, and it is now the largest luxury Ayurveda brand in the world with over 90 locations in 20 countries. So I'm sure Shalin has a lot of stories and a lot of insight in this journey that Spa Salon has gone from 2009 to now, and how it reached the status that it has reached today. And if you talk about Shalin, he has 15 years of experience in the personal care industry, and he also works with the Janet lifestyle brand as well. And just like Lakmini, I found it hard to keep these introductions short because, you know, there's so much that you've achieved, and, you know, obviously I did want to mention them because, like I said, the two of you are brands itself. So Shalin's been recognized among the 40 under 40 most influential professionals in Sri Lanka by the Echelon 40 under 40, and as well as one of the 10 outstanding young Sri Lankans at the TOYP Awards in 2017. So I am certainly excited to hear what Shalin and Lakmini have to say about the journeys their brands have taken over time, and I'm sure you are as well. So we will start off with the panelists for today talking a little bit about their experiences, and then we'll dive into a Q&A session in the format of a panel. And finally, if there are questions from the audience, we'd be happy to take them on as well. So I'd like to start off with Lakmini and hand over control to you to get started and tell us a little bit about BoardPack's journey. Oh, Lakmini, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Kushlani, for the wonderful introduction. And I'll share a slide deck with you all and run through the information I want to share with you. So just please bear with me for a moment. I hope you all start seeing the first slide.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So I'm really happy, and thanks again for inviting us and inviting me. So this particular, although I do many areas of work, we've selected BoardPack today for sharing. It's got an amazing story, and we'd love to share it with you and share some of the main points that made us successful. So it is currently Asia's most trusted board meeting automation, and that's not something we say. It's based on the clients and the activities that we've managed to do in the market. Just bear with me for a moment. So essentially, BoardPack, I guess some of you may not have known that it's a Sri Lankan brand, 100% Sri Lankan brand that is used by the world's top corporates, Fortune, many Fortune Global 500 companies across 40 countries, and over 50,000, not just ordinary people, but the top level directors in top level boards. So this is the journey that I'm going to talk about. We started off very well concentrated in the Asia Pac region, but we've now, year on year, we are spreading right across the globe. Currently, 40 countries is our mark, and we keep increasing that. And this is just a selected set of clients. And I hope you see that on screen. So starting from Mercedes-Benz, Mercedes-Daimler, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, many Fortune global brands like OCBC Bank, Great Eastern, even India's Reserve Bank of India, which is the Central Bank of India, Malaysia's Central Bank of India. And I can fill up 30 minutes with the names we have, but essentially, I want you to know this is 100% Sri Lankan built and branded with a global team that we have, but we control everything from here. So I'm really excited. I had to really work hard with our team, Gishan and Jerome, to figure out 10 points out of many that we could share with you. So here goes. This screen is placed just to put a perspective. So there were many areas, starting from trust to our design, why we did our logo a certain way or the brand name. So we're going to cover certain things, and the rest I'm sure Kushlani will get it out of us through the question and answers. So starting with the first one, essentially a brand is nothing if you don't have a trusted product. That is the core. We got it right. I'm not saying we got it right in day one, but we just went out to the market daringly, got something out first, and continuously improved it with our clients. And I'm really happy to say 8 years down the road, I think 7 years down the road now, we are pretty much in a very good position to be the market leader in the world, the #1 global code automation solution, and that's what we are working towards. This is just one screenshot of our unique dashboard that we have. Nobody else has this kind of view for directors. And so this is the core. So it's a trusted product. I mean, obviously, many of the features were very much geared to make sure directors were comfortable, 100% reliable, etc., etc. So starting from that point, there's no point having a great product if your brand recognition or there's no ability to get it across to our global market. So one of the important things that we did is we held our identity, the Sri Lankan identity. And you might wonder, I mean, how can a Sri Lankan brand, at that point, 8 years ago, hardly had clients at that time. Actually, our first international client was our third client. We did so by selecting very high-level, large brands in each country. And I've selected 2 or 3 just to drive this across. So like Maxis, these are the largest telcos in those countries. Vodacom, South Africa, Lifesize USA, and many others. So for example, the Maxis introduction is rooted to Sri Lanka. So when we went to Sri Lanka Telecom, they pretty much introduced their holding company, which is Maxis. And story is a little large, so I'll keep it compact. They introduced us. We daringly went at a time that our product was quite early in its stages, won their hearts, and we pretty much have the whole market. I mean, all the top banks, all the top companies, stock exchanges, everything. So the product is great. We got a good partner. That was our brand strategy to get things across. So what you see on screen now with lots of people, these are various events that we do to reach out to that market through the Maxis brand. But now actually, originally it was a Maxis brand, but now because we never white label, we never allowed to white label, BoardPack is known, it's BoardPack, carried by Maxis. Another example is in fact Africa. And Africa is actually a very difficult country. It took us 3 years, again, an introduction. The South African ambassador introduced us. So any of you who are here, please reach out to people in Sri Lanka. They help. 3 years we struggled, we got it, and story goes the same. Similarly, advocacy, there's so much help from EDB, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, plus more like SLASCOM, etc. These were things that we did. I don't want to go into detail, but each has a story. We got very good brand names through these introductions. So third point, we also set up our direct presence. Not everywhere, but we've got about 8 locations right now out of our 40. And we tag team with our partners. So these areas, I'm sure you see this on screen with lots of people. These are various staff members. You can see culturally they are, in Africa, they're Africans. In the States, there's US people. So we pretty much culturally align with those countries to make this a success. Fourth point, it was really important that we didn't just go to the bottom level. We always targeted the top. So therefore, we have many Fortune 500 clients, not by accident, because we strive. We know we're good enough. We just go out there and get them. And I've got this book, and I really recommend people to look at 0 to 1, Peter Thiel. He says, pretty much, you have to go dominate markets. You cannot be like a second player, third player kind of thing. And that's our strategy too. Running through this a little fast because I've got 10 points. I really want to share that the word board is in our logo and the brand name. Many times I've been asked to sort of change it, but we didn't, because we want to be branded as a board solution. We do offer solutions. We do offer our services to other management committees, etc. But we always go through the board. I mean, if you think of it, if I just go as a meeting solution, who's going to take us? Because Teams or whatever is there already. But Teams cannot compete with BoardPack. Teams does not have a solution for the board. So we branded ourselves in a very sort of a niche point with ability to move further. So I'm quickly going to run through some of these slides where we're going to just show some of the brand activities, awareness, taking the recognition to the market happened. We did lots of work on COVID time with webinars because we couldn't obviously meet people. This is a specific one. It's a global one where from Australia to UK, India, you can see all these people are governance heads of their institutions and organizations mixed with some of our clients. We had over 2,000 global audience at that point live at this event. Many other events aligned with other organizations and partners. And of course, before COVID, obviously we had lots of events with stalls and things like that, and speaking engagements that we did to make sure that our brand was very much localized in all these markets. Number 7 is we made sure that we were competing with other brands and winning awards, making sure that we were on top of things. So as Kushlani mentioned, the most recent one last week that we got for the second time was the Best Brand Exporter National Chamber. Along with that, we've got so many other international and local awards, which some of it is out here. And very interestingly, it was really important that we are in the ranking side. So Gartner, Capterra, GetApps, etc. We've got so many of these badges. And obviously, we have to work really hard to get them and compete with any other player in the region and market. So highest performer, most recommended, best ease of use, etc. So these are things that all of us who are in product marketing can do. Number 8, outbound campaigning. So we didn't just sit there; we shook the tree literally. So lots of outbound campaigning. We buy databases. Later in the questions, I can talk a little bit more about the strategies we do. We do a lot of outbound campaigns on email, social media, etc. And these are typically driven to get us the adequate number of inquiries to completely have a very healthy pipeline on our sales, and it's for everybody to sort of know the brand. So this goes on, even strategic advertising that we did with various governance institutions. This is just one little booklet I'm showing, but we didn't stick to only, because they're traditional people, so you have to look at the audience. We had to do a mix of paper-based as well, although we are paperless, to reach that audience and bring them to paperless. Final topic is the advocacy. This plays hugely. So our current base pretty much is viral. They give us so much of the one person you get ends up to be in 10 boats. So it's a viral effect for us with this particular solution. And we've not just taken that as a something for granted. We do, I mean, this is one campaign that we started in our marketing called the digital governance professional certification. It's the first in our industry. We do this, we give certificates, we make them proud. So these users are really proud to be part of BoatPack, and they tell their friends to possibly get the certificate. And to get the certificate, they have to buy BoatPack. So this is the kind of thing, and this is pretty much my last slide. So there goes my 10 points, and we'll look forward to it at the question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lakri. That's very insightful, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we can get in terms of some of the insights that you shared as we progress with the session. So I'm going to move on now to Shalin and his experiences in building the Spa Salon brand. So we're going to start off with a quick video, and then Shalin will take over after that.
Indulge in the world's largest luxury Ayurveda brand. Spa Salon. Nestled in the heart of the Indian Ocean lies the teardrop isle of Ceylon, acclaimed since ancient times as an exotic tropical paradise that is rich in natural beauty. Here you find the 5,000-year-old science of life, Ayurveda. Deep-rooted in the culture of the island, it became the essence of the majestic well-being rituals that were practices in the grand palaces of ancient Ceylon. Spa Salon invites you to a royal indulgence with a range of products, experience stores and spas. Spa Salon high-performance formulae are enriched only with the purest natural ingredients and blended with fine aromatic essential oils of flowers, herbs, fruits and wood to purify, hydrate, treat, soothe and calm. Spa Salon stores are designed incorporating a mix of Ceylonese royal insignia, traditional motifs and jeweled hues, combined with contemporary design to take you through a unique, multi-sensory experience. The royal health and well-being ritual practices in the palaces of ancient Ceylon are the inspiration for Spa Salon's signature treatments, where internationally trained therapists pamper discerning spa connoisseurs from head to toe while they experience the luxury of Ayurveda. Winner of multiple World Luxury Spa Awards, the Spa Salon experience is designed and detailed to perfection and is undeniably unique. The principles behind Spa Salon are the fierce love for and commitment to the well-being of our community, country, fellow creatures, and our planet. It is a commitment applied to every phase of the business and is most apparent in the formulation of Spa Salon products. Today, the brand is involved in community fair trade, sustainable harvesting of ingredients, wildlife conservation, prevention of cruelty towards animals, protection of human rights and the environment. Spa Salon, the world's largest luxury Ayurveda brand. A place where indulgence reigns.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Am I off mute? Good evening, everyone. Thank you to SLASCOM for having me, and I think it's a great parallel to have me with Lakshmini, because she's very much a B2B and a tech company where we are very much, or we are most definitely a B2C and direct-to-consumer company, and we are far from tech. We're all about sensory engagement. So it's a good, I think, spectrum to have. I don't have beautiful slides planned for you guys like Lakshmini had. I also don't have 10 points. I can give you 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about why we built Sparsalon, how we built Sparsalon, and how we got the brand out there. But I'm going to focus more on why a brand will work internationally. I'm not going to talk too much on the qualifying factors like building great products, consistency, and so on, things which any brand should really have. I'm going to talk about what is going to make you on very much on a marketing, on the consumer side, what's going to make things work. And then hopefully that opens up some interesting questions from the audience. So I'll quickly run through the story of Sparsalon. The reason I wanted to show that video to start with is I wanted everyone to understand the different facets of the brand. And as I tell the story about how it came to be, then it becomes a little more understandable. See, Sparsalon is a very purpose-built brand. How it all started was my brother and me were working for our mother's company, which was a cosmetic company, a company called Janet Ayurveda. It's still in the market. We still run it. And the war was on in Sri Lanka. There was very little growth, and we wanted to build a brand that had the legs to go international. We had tried with the Janet brand, but being a mass market brand, it was very hard to take it international unless you actually produced it there. So what we went out and we started looking at the market. We knew the industry. We were quite plugged into the industry. We started looking at the market. We started deep diving into the consumer. We started looking at the consumer and also forecasting where the consumer would be in the years to come as we developed the brand. And we did that through trade events, a lot of information, a lot of journals, a lot of research, all that stuff, getting our head together on what kind of brand would work. So in doing so, we realized this was 10, 12, 15 years ago when we were actually putting the building blocks together, that everyone was going green. The whole world is going green. They were also looking back into old sciences and so on. And they were looking at green alternatives. They were looking at more holistic ways of living and so on. And we looked back into what we had at Sri Lanka. And in Sri Lanka, we had this amazing resource of Ayurveda, but it was not being pitched in a way that would engage a modern consumer. So looking at that, looking at the industry, looking at the consumer, and understanding what they wanted, also looking at the resources we had, we realized that if we could take Ayurveda and present it in a way that the consumer, that was meaningful to the modern consumer, that it would work. So that was really the key behind building what was Sparsalon. The reason Spa and Ceylon, Spa, again, at that point, the word was buzzing internationally because Spa was considered this relaxation, this getaway kind of feel. And that's what we wanted to give our consumer. Soon as they experience the product, we wanted to be an escape to luxury and relaxation and so on, like going into a spa. Yeah. So again, it was very, very purpose-built to go international. And we started putting the building blocks, always thinking from the consumer downwards. Yeah. So the first thing was understanding the consumer, building the products to it. And we started building these Ayurveda products in a way, getting the packaging right so it was of international standard, getting the fragrances right so that it wasn't that grungy Ayurveda people were used to, getting the delivery right and making sure they were effective products. That was number one. Number two, we realized that if we had to take this product out there to an international market, sit alongside the French and European cosmetic brands, which are the biggest in the world, that we would have to definitely be unique. And that is one of the main 3 points I will talk to you about: uniqueness. If you are designing a product, your uniqueness, especially a direct consumer product, your uniqueness is paramount to surviving in an international marketplace. Because when you land in a given country or international marketplace, as when we took the brand out of Sri Lanka and we were suddenly going into malls and retailing alongside international brands, if we looked and felt like them, we would have never been noticed. So our brand, firstly, even visually, had to be very, very unique and represent a unique story. And that's what we did with the branding aspect of it. We took not only Ayurveda, we took it to be Ayurveda as practiced in the grand palaces and built a story around it, which was true. But of course, we bought the marketing elements to say Ayurveda for royalty, and hence luxury Ayurveda, the new platform that we built. Yeah, and we brought all the little elements within the store, within the products and so on that reflected that. So we wanted a product that made people feel like royalty when they use it or experience it. Then it came to retailing it. We decided that it would retail in our branded stores. That was also purposeful. Starting in Sri Lanka did not have premium spaces to sell cosmetics at that time. So we had to create our own spaces. Even going overseas, if we went into department stores and tried to sell our product, we would have never been taken in. A small Ayurveda brand from Sri Lanka trying to get into department stores and create unique spaces, that wouldn't have worked. But we went and started creating stores. And those stores were experience stores. So when soon as people saw it, they realized, wow, this is something different. I need to step in and see what's happening. Soon as people stepped in, we engaged them in a multisensory way. Fragrance, color, design, all that, everything was absolutely unique. And it was experiential, so that people would come into the store just for the experience. And as they come into the store, then they start exploring, and then you start introducing them to product. So at every step of the way, it was consumer driven, number one. Number two, it was unique. And we kept working on that uniqueness. Yeah. Apart from that, the big thing, and a very big thing you need to have in brands and consumer brands in particular, is authenticity. Yes, it's great to build stories around brands, but don't forget, everyone has a supercomputer in their hand right now. And if your stories aren't authentic, whether it's about your ingredients, about your science, where it comes from, about your harvesting, they are going to catch you up. And also, you're not going to last. So all the stories we built around the brand were real stories, authentic stories, and had actual backing from our country, from our science, and so on. Yeah. So again, consumer-based, authentic, and consumer-based, consumer first, authentic, and make sure you have a story that stands out. Yeah. The next one is to be evolving. So as we grew, at the moment, we are, I just need to update the stats that were given earlier. We are now in 160 locations across 26 countries. We've grown through the pandemic as well. And something we learned while growing within these countries and in this 11-year journey is the need to evolve. Consumer trends are changing faster than ever before. If you went back 15 years, consumer trends or fashion trends would start on one side of the world, and by the time it came to the other side of the world, you at least had a year. Now it doesn't. Someone launches a product or a cosmetic or a skin cream or start talking about ingredient today, it's a global launch. It's everywhere. So you have to be on board. Ingredient changes that are done within our market happen globally. So it's a constant evolution, and you have to be on the ball to evolve with it. Consumer needs are changing. Going back to my first point, you have to keep the consumer right on top and spend a lot of time understanding the consumer's behavior, lifestyle, and how that changes. So right now, consumer behavior is changing so fast. See what COVID did. It changed people's behaviors like that. And even on a weekly basis, now we see behavior, and we see the changes. We'll see the changes we had to make to our products, which is the changes we had to make to the way we deliver our product. we had experience. So suddenly we had to get the product to the consumer's home. Suddenly we had to change the way we engage with them. So learning and evolving is the third big point, where we constantly need to keep learning and evolving so that your brand is moving with the changing lifestyle. And learning and evolving comes from several places. One big one is obviously consumer lifestyle. Second big one is from your competitors. See what they're doing, learn and evolve, and the bigger market space as well. Three, another great place to learn and evolve is from your staff itself, because they're the people interacting with your consumers every day. There's a lot of information that comes from it. So my 3 tips for anyone wanting to take your brand global: consumer first, uniqueness, learn and keep evolving.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shalin. And I love how you touched on the experience aspect. I think even when we just listened and watched the video right now, it puts you in a different headspace, similar to when you walk into a spa salon store. And I think that's how the brand has really established itself. And yeah, there's definitely a lot more insight to get from you on the topic. Lakmini, I'm going to start off with a question for you. Now, I know over the years, BoardPack has evolved and become this really strong brand. You've won some great awards. You've been on review sites like Capterra. But at the beginning, how did you really figure out, and I think you mentioned how the reason why you wanted the word board in the brand as well, but how did you really figure out that this is something your target audience wanted, and how did you map what the product could offer with their needs? Just at the beginning, what was your thought process like? What sort of research did you do? How did that work?
So thanks, Kushali. So BoardPack isn't our first product. So just to say that we had so many attempts, we had so many pivoting. And when BoardPack came, actually it was a client services request from Nations Trust. So at that point, when we built it, I mean, anything we got, we built with so much passion that we tried to make it a product. So that's essentially that point of success. And we very soon, actually almost coincidentally, we realized that many people have the same problem. So really understanding that this was a global phenomenon, that people, board members were on paper and they needed this particular requirement. It is purely because we just went out there. We didn't start building this massive thing internally and deliver. We went to the clients. We took a risk. In fact, I have stories of being quite worried when we're doing demos, like in Malaysia initially, the product wasn't fully developed, but we knew that we could deliver it by the time they wanted it. So there was a lot of that. But essentially also, something I'd like to say is that, our values, we are very focused on enriching the user experience of board members. And that being the source, as everybody knows, board members, they're ultra sophisticated. They care so much about the quality. So we look at the trust. We are always looking at innovation and care. Those are the 3 things that everything sort of revolves around. So I hope that sort of answers what you wanted to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great, Langminda. It's great that you have those core values that you stand by, and you make sure that they are inculcated in your product, and even during the evolution, those kind of still stay within the product. So that's great, fantastic. Thank you for that. So Shalin, I have a somewhat similar yet different question for you. So you spoke about how you wanted to bring the concept of Ayurveda to the modern customer, and kind of take them away from the traditional norms of Ayurveda, or what everyone was always used to. So at the beginning, how confident were you that this was something that would work? And again, did you go into any sort of research? Did you have focus groups, or how did you test out the idea in any manner, or did you kind of just go all out with it?
See, essentially the understanding was globally that the consumers are looking to go green. Yeah, so that was the first understanding, that the consumers are looking to go green, and they were looking for more holistic ways of going green. Yeah, at that point, The yoga revolution has started in the US. Suddenly, yoga that was India was home that was not even looked at that deeply in India was making $80 billion in the US, right? So that's how things were changing. And with that, people are looking at these different sciences and trying to, what should I say, trying to engage with them, but there's always a gap unless it's taken to them, like yoga was taken in the US to the consumer, right? So we understood that there was a need within the consumer base globally for green products. We understood there was, because we already had Ayurveda knowledge and we spent a lot of time with Ayurveda doctors and so on, understanding the Ayurveda science. And we knew the science itself had a lot of potential because there was a link between what we had and what the world was asking for. But bridging that is what we needed to do. Now, when we came out, did we bridge it perfectly? No, of course not. In these last 10 years, we've been evolving, we've been tweaking, we've been changing and taking it forward. But what we did, I believe, for Ayurveda was the first big bridge that took it from being indigenous medicine to being a pampering, a luxury, a cosmetic product, to even bring it into that consideration set from something that's yucky and sticky and smelly that you only do if you have to, versus, oh, I want to have this experience because it feels so luxurious, it's pampering, it's nice, it's, all those good thoughts. Yeah. So what we need to do is keep the science intact, keep the goodness intact of Ayurveda, but bridge it. And that's what we wanted to do, and that's what we did. Yeah. So yes, there was a lot of time spent on research in terms of what the consumer wanted. There was also a lot of focus groups, lots of panels doing every time we came up with product, in checking it, how did people react to it, so on and so forth. There still is a lot of research and development done every day. And that's a big part of the brand, especially because we are a cosmetic brand and fast evolving brand. So that bridge was what we need to create. And I think we did it quite well initially, but as we evolved, I think we fine-tuned it a lot, and it's got much better.
Okay, great. Right, consistency is always key, no matter what you do. So that's great. Thank you for that, Shalin. So there's also, let me raise this right now as well. There's a question for Shalin. I believe you answered most of it, but let me just read through it real quick. How does a new entrepreneur find the knowledge and resources when entering into a local or international market about packaging, labeling, logo, label design, printing, and certifications?
Yes. So depending on your industry, all that changes quite drastically. Depending on the region or country, it changes drastically as well. From Asia to Europe, the US, labeling laws, ingredient laws, all that changed quite drastically. But thank God for the internet, because a lot of that is available pretty much if you spend a little time Googling, you'll get the information out there. Especially labeling regulations are out there for pretty much anyone to get. But if you're going into places like Europe, you still need what they call a responsible party in Europe, where you need to hire a company there to keep all your formulations and things if your medication or a topical use item or something like that. I'm sure there's different regulations for tech and so on, which I don't know. But thankfully, in this day and age, a lot of the information is out there for free. And information that's not out there for free, again, like Lakshmini said, reach out to your Chamber of Commerce, reach out to EDB. Those guys can help you get it from government to government and chamber to chamber. A lot of information can be got for pretty much for free, especially when it's down to regulation, labeling, so on. In terms of consumer trends, one of the first things you can do, which will cost you nothing, is figure out who your closest competitor is. Go and watch carefully, or figure out your top 5 closest competitors. Watch carefully what they're doing. Yeah, that's free research for you. How are they packaging it? How are they presenting it? What are they doing? What variants are they doing? What pack sizes are they using? Because obviously the bigger boys are doing their research, right? So that's your first step. If you at the moment can't afford to go out and do your research yourself, start looking at the big boys, see what they're doing, learn from that. And as you start building, as you start being able to do your own research, go out and start doing research. Again, now there's a big opportunity to do online research, which is fairly cheaper than going out and doing the old-fashioned quantitative research. There's that. Do some focus groups. I don't want to take too much time, so yeah, that kind of stuff.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shalin. So a question for Lakmini. Lakmini, can you explain, this is actually from the audience, thank you Nanika for bringing this up. Can you talk a little bit about the certifications and the reviews that BoardPack has received, Capterra, for example, and I think that's quite important for anybody who is in the technology marketing space to get into, in the technology space rather, to get into reviews like this. So Lakmini, any insights that you can share with the audience in terms of how you got there?
Yeah, sure. So Capterra, incidentally, is owned by Gartner. And those of you who are, evaluating IT products knows that Gartner is kind of like God. It used to be like God. And now, as you can see, even Capterra, there's a couple of them. If you go to Capterra, you can find the rest as well. They have sort of somewhat replaced Gartner's big power by being an online ranking. So if you're doing IT-based work, you got to sort of list yourself, and the competitors are there, and you can play that quite well. So in terms of Capterra, as you may have seen in the presentation, we diligently, our marketing diligently follows it, make sure that we are branded. We've got like the best user awards and things like that. With that, what happens is evaluators, want an independent response of who they should select, and they go to a site like Capterra. So that's kind of important. If you're not listed in Capterra, they might think you're not important. So so I just mentioned like 5 sites. So Capterra, G2, GetApps, Software World, Software Advice. There are others, but these are the ones that commonly get used. And I would highly recommend, if you're in product business, to list yourself there.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Lakmini. And one more question to you as well, just about measuring the success of a brand, or just figuring out if your brand is doing well and is, kind of achieving the intended KPIs. Now, as well, at least for me as a marketer, I know that we invest a lot of budget into activities that we would classify as brand awareness or brand building. But when it comes to justifying the return on that investment, it's quite difficult because it's not always tangible. It's not something I can go and tell my CMO or even tell the CEO, look, we invested this amount of money. Here are the results. So how did you figure out ways to measure the success of your brand, and if it was doing well, and what sort of milestones did you set in terms of your brand's journey?
Sure, Kushlani. So essentially, it comes to the brand recognition. I mean, 2 parts really. Brand recognition awareness section. So that's luring the customer to understanding what we're doing. And then, of course, the advocacy loyalty. So we look at both sides as teams doing those things. And of course, the Capterra and that kind of thing is coming into advocacy as well, because once you're a customer, we somehow get them to give their reviews. Apart from that, in other ways as well. But so the monitoring, actually, we have some very interesting measures for our marketing team, which are, as you said, there's a lot out there, but we try to keep it tangible. So even Capterra, the ranking that we have, the Capterra and the others, we keep a score on them. So that's, you got to do so many things to get that score, right? So internally, we look at that. We look at, overall in the recognition and the awareness side, we look at the volume of users that come into our websites and these various media and come into our sales channels. So that's a very tangible thing that we do, because if our brand is not interesting, if the brand has no value, obviously nobody's going to bother to make inquiries and connect with us. So that's another area of measure that we're doing. And I must say that we've gone through so many mistakes and found ways. So there was a time that we did heavy Google ads. But remember, we are not a retail product. We don't need this 7 million or 7 billion people for that matter. But if you take Sri Lanka, for example, there's 500 companies, 600 companies maybe who can use us, right? The shop is not going to use us. It's not retail. And then 20 people in that company at the top level who will have interest in us to begin with, as a board. So you're talking like really 500 into 20. That's the number. And we know who they are, we can identify. So if you take any other country like Malaysia or any other country, even the US, we don't need to blast it. We just have to do our intelligence and keep on pushing until they get us. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's a challenge to see how many of them take our request and come in. So our brand really is very targeted. It's different to retail in that sense. We do coverage. We do broader coverage, but we're really focused on growing and getting more companies using BoardPack. So so I hope that kind of covered many of the things you asked.
It does, and I think the whole thing with Google Ads, I can tell from experience, that's I think a common pitfall that most of us do fall into, because you try to get instant results and then you do invest in ads, and then it just doesn't work. The traffic and the visitors that you get ultimately aren't qualified, so your end goal isn't met. So that's great. Thanks for that, Lakshmini. And there's a question for Shalin again from the audience, and Shalin, maybe you can also tie it into some of the branding milestones and success metrics that you've set. The question is, how did Spa Salon strategically market during COVID? And I suppose you can also touch on whether you saw any significant achievements for the brand during the period.
Yeah, so during COVID, the challenge for us is our engagement. Significant part of our engagement was our stores. So here was a time where we couldn't get anyone into our stores. So it was about engagement. So we switched gears completely into online engagement. So we spent a lot of time, again, looking at the consumer, looking at the consumer's lifestyle, looking at our brand and saying, okay, what is their lifestyle right now? How do we bridge? How do we make our brand meaningful to them now? Yeah. So we went heavily on social media, started doing free consultations, started doing free yoga, free dietary advice, anything to do with wellness that had an Ayurveda link. We started going out there and focusing on keeping our clients engaged. Yeah, so engagement was our number one priority, at least in the first 2 months, or first 2 months to 3 months of COVID, and heavily engaging on social media. Yeah, which meant severely increasing our social media infrastructure and our teams, our customer service teams, all that, because there was a lot of interaction back and forth. Again, talking to people, even when we started talking to people on product, people wanted real-time information. People wanted to just pick up and call someone no matter what time it was. So we made all that possible. Another big thing was bridging. Then it came to, okay, now we need to also start actively selling online, because one, we need to keep our revenue coming in. Two, we need to get the product to the consumer. So how does that happen? Then what we did was started bridging for the consumer again, people who are not used to being online. How do we bridge? So we did things like we made it possible to people to order on WhatsApp, or people to call and order, and we had someone do a shopping cart for them. We made our platforms easier for people to shop online. As we started coming out of the pandemic, we had order online, pick up on the curbside, or they just drive into the store and pick it up. We are one of the first companies to get guys like Uber involved in getting products to the consumer, right, as a single brand. So what we did was make it as easy as possible for the consumers to get their products to them. We also started, you guys would have seen, almost a subscription box model, where we started doing basically boxes filled with products, and in most cases, surprise products, where people would buy a whole box and enable them to experience a whole range of products rather than just one. So people are sitting at home, they had the time. Here they were experiencing 15 different Spa Salon products all at once. So they could have almost the experience of shopping within the store, and then deciding, okay, I'll go buy the bigger size of this. So engagement is the key. Answering the other question, how do we account our success? Well, in the larger sense for us, since we built this as a brand to go international, the big count for success was how many countries we were hitting and how many outlets we were opening, which was something we were very focused on. We still are. Then, of course, after about 3 years, you need to give, especially cosmetic brands, 3 years to grow. But thankfully, we financially were doing better even before the 3 years. But after the 3 years, your balance sheet is a good indication of where you are and how successful you're being. So there's that. Also, the other thing between engagement and conversion, just like what Lakshmi was saying as well, we track how many people walk into every store across the world, and we track how many people we convert, as in how many people make a purchase. Same with our website, how many people, pretty much everyone does this on websites because it's pretty much automatic. How many people are engaging, how many people are buying. We do the same thing with all our Google ads or your Facebook interactions, all that. How many people are we interacting with on a day-to-day basis? How many people are converting? So interactions are still a very important part of our business because it is also the nature of our business. It's not as targeted as Lakshmi's business, but we do target where we put our media. We identify our consumer and put our media there, whether it's online or otherwise. Even where we make the brand available is very, very targeted. We've been widening the target recently as the brand's grown and evolved, but again, very targeted advertising, but there is that wide array to create interaction. If we find something is not creating interaction, then that's the first problem. But interaction is still key, and then going from interaction to conversion is the next step. So any company out there, especially if you're a consumer company, calculate your interactions and conversions. That will give you an indication whether your marketing is effective and whether what you're putting out there is meaningful to your consumer. That is the absolute key. If your product or service does not make someone's life easier or better or doesn't create a blip in their life, they're not going to come back and buy it or consume it. Yeah, I hope that answers it.
Yes, it does. Thanks, Shalin. So we just have a couple minutes. Well, we have 1 minute left, but I think one thing that we can just touch on before we wrap up is, so just like you've had some tremendous success stories, Shalin and Lakshmi. I mean, you mentioned that you've had your fair share of mistakes and when things didn't really go according to plan. And I can imagine for an entrepreneur or for a startup or for any company, it can be a little intimidating to potentially take your brand into a global market. But how did you stay motivated in spite of the challenges or whatever errors that you made, things that didn't go according to plan or results that you hoped to achieve but didn't achieve? I think some final words of inspiration for our audience would be great. Lakshmi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I guess as I think it was Jack Ma who said, success is always there unless you give up. So I don't really know why, but my team and myself, and I'm sure many companies who, go on this journey, do not give up. We just keep fighting. And of course, success is there. And failure is a constant thing because even at some level, as Shalin mentioned, you've got to do so many things to build your brand, and you keep scrapping the ones that don't work. So it's a constant, it's an evolution thing, and yeah. So really looking forward to make this brand, and I'm sure many brands in Sri Lanka to be, well known in the world. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Shalin, your thoughts?
Well, as an entrepreneur, number one, you need to enjoy what you do. And once you get passionate about it, it becomes a lot of fun as well. You need to start learning from when you make mistakes, and you need to celebrate your small wins. And celebrating your small wins is something we sometimes forget to do, but celebrating small wins is great, not just for you, but for your teams as well. So that, well done on hitting this number, well done on getting this out. Again, don't forget, especially in a consumer brand, engagement is half the battle. So even if you're getting your engagement right and maybe it's still not converting, still celebrate the win and figure out where the gap is. So learn from your mistakes, celebrate even your small wins is I think what keeps you going. Look, if you only kept winning, it get rather boring, wouldn't it? So it's nice when you have to wake up in the morning and shoot towards something. So it's fun if you love what you do.
Fantastic. Thanks, Shalin. And I think celebrating small wins is...
Can I just add one more thing that I need to tell Sri Lankan brands? Sri Lankan brands, this probably doesn't apply to tech brands. So I know it's Lascom, but if there are any consumer brands out there, please, the guys who want to go international, don't think going international means looking foreign, as in don't think going international means looking European or American or whatever the country you're going to, looking and feeling like that. Because you start doing that, you're not going to be unique, especially if you're a consumer brand. It doesn't matter whether you're making pickles or biscuits or grapes or wine or whatever it is. If you go there, if you go to Europe and try to sell champagne or sparkling wine, it's not going to work. So understand that we are in Sri Lanka. There are lots of unique things to us, especially when you're creating consumer brand. Use it right now. Even with this going on, Sri Lanka is looked at as a very unique space. Use those attributes. And also don't forget, Sri Lanka, given our size and our connectivity within the business circles, is a great place to incubate a brand and build a brand. Use that to your advantage before you take it out. We are just small enough to do things quite efficiently. We are big enough to test things. So use the fact that you're Sri Lankan. Don't be discouraged the fact that we are out of Sri Lanka, and use it to your advantage. So yeah.
Thank you, Shalin. Thanks very much. I think this was a great session. Lots of insights. I certainly learned a lot from listening to the both of you. So I'd like to just make a quick announcement before we wrap up. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a 5-part webinar series, and what we just concluded was the second webinar. So the third one is on content marketing, which I'm sure if you're in tech is something that is quite important and needs to be an essential part of your marketing strategy. So we're going to be talking about content marketing and the need to invest in it in the long run. And that session is on the 16th of March. So do watch out for updates on the session via Slash.com's social media channels and via email as well if you've subscribed. So that brings us to the end of today's session on building brands. I'd like to thank Lakshmini and Shalin once again for your time. Great session, lots of great feedback from the audience as well. I can see lots of notes of appreciation for both of you for taking the time to talk to us about your experiences. Very diverse, coming from two different backgrounds, B2B and B2C, but so much learning packed into the 1 hour that we had today. So thank you once again to the both of you, and for all our participants for staying on and listening to the session. We hope to see you again next week. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thanks.